A fragile ceasefire was brokered in Syria last month. I want to bring in Edward Djerejian. He is a former U.S. ambassador to both Israel and Syria, and he is the director of the Baker Institute at Rice University. Good to see you. All right, so do you see this as welcome news, or is it a problem that a member of the incoming Trump administration would be invited to these talks, but not any member of the Obama administration?
Well, I don't see it as a problem, Frederica, but I see it as a very serious challenge. Only 3 days after the president-elect is sworn in, his team, or members of his team, if they do attend the conference in Astana in Kazakhstan, they have to hit the road running on one of the most critical foreign policy crises on their agenda. You know, what happens in Syria doesn't stay in Syria. The horrible Syrian civil war, the hundreds of thousands of people killed, the refugee exodus affects all of its neighbors, and they have close relations with us, be it Turkey, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, our Gulf partners in the Arab Gulf, and our European allies because of the Syrian refugee crisis. These refugees have been part of the destabilization of Europe. So this is a major foreign policy issue for the new administration.
And so when you say a challenge, because you've laid it out that it's quite sizable, there is a lot at stake, it's a challenge because it doesn't give whatever representative is to go of the Trump administration an opportunity to be able to offer some ideas, or a challenge because the U.S. would play more of a note-taking kind of role. Define and explain what you mean by the challenge.
Well, the challenge is that the United States has to be a major player in whatever the future direction of Syria is going to be. It cannot be ignored for the reasons I explained, the heavy interests involved. I think this Astana conference is a stepping stone to the Geneva conference in early February, in which the United States is a major party, and all the players will be there. So it gives the United States an opportunity, if they do attend, and frankly I hope they do attend, with their eyes wide open and one hand on our wallet, and see what can be achieved at the Astana conference. I think mostly it could be a consolidation of this very, very fragile ceasefire. If they achieve that and then begin to outline the possibility of political talks for a political transition in Syria, then that could be helpful.
Okay, now let's shift to Russia, away from that end of the Syria conversation. Have a listen to something that outgoing CIA Director John Brennan said about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and intelligence.
I don't think he has a full appreciation of Russian capabilities, Russians' intentions, and actions that they are undertaking in many parts of the world. And that's what the obligation and responsibility of the intelligence community is. I very much hope that our relationship with Russia improves in the coming administration. I think he has to be mindful that he does not yet, I think, have a full appreciation, understanding of what the implications are of going down that road, as well as making sure he understands what Russia is doing.
So do you see that as both a warning and advice coming from Brennan?
It is both. It's warning and advice. I think it really is incumbent upon the Trump administration to determine what type of relationship the United States is going to have with Russia. I think a major effort should be made by the new team to basically enter into a real strategic dialogue with Russia, outline what our common interests are. For example, terrorism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, that's a common interest that both our countries have. But to also take a very clear-eyed look at where our differences are, certainly in Syria, in the Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea, and other issues. So this is the time for not a false reset like occurred, unfortunately, under the Obama administration, but really to restructure this relationship is key. Let's not forget, Russia is a major nuclear weapons power.
And 70 countries were in Paris today for Middle East peace talks that Israel is boycotting. The upshot is that most of the countries support a two-state solution and warned against anything that could derail that. Is that a warning for the Trump administration not to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem? What's your interpretation?
Well, I think it's an alert being given by all these countries to the new American administration that there's an a large international consensus on a two-state solution being the only viable path forward if Israel is going to remain, as it itself desires, a democratic Jewish state, that this is one of the most intractable problems in the Middle East, but it's also a cause of continuing instability. And the very future of the Palestinian state and the future of Israel depend on successful negotiation. So I think this is an alert. I wouldn't call it a warning. I think it's an alert that there's an international consensus, and they're trying to influence the Trump administration to really adopt the two-state solution and certainly not move the embassy to Jerusalem with all the implications that would have and the possible consequences. But we'll see. We don't know what the new administration's policies are going to be.
All right, Ambassador Djerejian, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate being with you.